بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. نويت تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع والانتفاع والإفادة الاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة رسوله صلى الله على آله وصحبه وسلم، وبالدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله مرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. ربي زدني علما ربي زدني علما ربي زدني علما ربي زدني علما ربي زدني علما. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع وقلب لا يخشى وعمل لا يرفع ولا يسمع. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع وبقلب لا يخشى وعمل لا يرفع ولا يسمع. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع وبقلب لا يخشى وبعمل لا يرفع ولا يسمع. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Alhamdulillah, shall we continuing on the text, inshallah. Muhammad, the messenger to mankind, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Unfortunately, Sheikh Ibrahim for this week is also preoccupied, so inshallah he will begin another set of classes on the Monday, inshallah, on Monday evening from next week, inshallah. Moving on, the migration on page 23. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded his companions to migrate to Medina, yet he stayed behind until the last of them left, waiting for Allah's permission to be granted to migrate himself. He organized and planned well for it, taking all possible means of precaution. Upon finally undertaking the migration, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companion Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu left for the cave of Thawr, concealing themselves therein until the search of the opposition paused for rest. The Quraysh set out in pursuit and communicated to the tribes a bounty of 100 camels for each one of them killed or taken prisoner. The search reached the cave of Thawr, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala averted their sight from them, and he recorded the miraculous nature of that event. The second of two, when they were in the cave, said to his companion, "Do not despair. Indeed, Allah is with us." On the way to Medina, Suraqa ibn Malik caught up to them and began to approach the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Began to beseech Allah against Suraqa, whereupon the legs of his horse sunk into the ground, and Allah prevented him from harming them. Suraqa then sought refuge himself and pledged to grant them safety. That being so, the Prophet ﷺ prayed for him and gave him glad tidings that he would come to wear the bracelet of Kisra, the king of the world. Suraqa returned, sending back whomever he encountered, saying, "You have been saved the trouble. They are not here." The Prophet ﷺ arrived in Medina, and the Ansar received him with songs of joy and poetry of delight. Its quarters were illuminated with his light, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the anthem of its reception has been etched into history forever. On the full moon, the full moon rose over us from the valleys of Al-Wada', and it behooves us to be thankful for what the caller has called us to Allah. O the one sent amongst us, you have come with command for us to obey. Now, Bismillah. So after the pledge of Al-Aqaba, the Prophet ﷺ, as you mentioned, he sent forth some of the early companions like Mus'ab ibn Umair to Medina Munawwara to now begin preparing the way for the coming of the Prophet ﷺ. As we know, in the Isra wal Mi'raj, one of the places that the Prophet stops, he stops in 7 places. From those places, a few of them he's asked to stop, get down and pray. And from the first place the Prophet orders to stop and he comes down from Buraq is Medina al-Munawwara. This is indicative that this is going to be the place of migration for the Prophet ﷺ. The migration of itself, this is the criterion between truth and falsehood. The criterion between truth and falsehood. And if we look at the Hijra, as we know, at the Islamic calendar, it goes by the date of migration. I mean, Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, he's the one who sets the foundation, or sets the calendar for the Muslims now, the Muslim calendar. But he sets it by the migration, Muharram, sets it by the migration of itself. Why? It's one of the greatest events that occur in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Prior to that, Islam has always been done privately. Then it was done out in the public, and there was one Hijra which was made, as we know, the first Hijra is made to Abyssinia, and a group of the Sahaba travelled to Abyssinia out of safety. But upon return now, you're going to have a clear distinction between Dar al-Kufr and Dar al-Islam. A clear distinction between the abode of disbelief and the abode of faith, the abode of what? Islam in of itself. So Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, he could have chose a different event. He could have chose Ramadan as being the beginning of the year, Islamic year. He could have chose the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 12th of Rabi al-Awwal. But Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, he chooses, and from that date onward, it's inscribed as being the Islamic year. From that date onward, is what? The day of the Hijra. It's the actual Hijra of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dar al-Hijra, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says, إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإن لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن هاجر إلى الله ولرسوله فهاجر إلى الله ورسوله ومن هاجر لدنيا أو امرأة ينكحها فهاجر إلى ما هاجر عليه كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet said, actions by their intentions, and verily a person is rewarded for everything that he intends. Then he says, whoever intends migration for the sake of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then his reward is migration for Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we know, he starts ordering what? The companions to go ahead, ordering them to leave Mecca, now make migration to Hijra. And they make migration, most of them, with absolutely nothing. They have nothing to take with them. They have what? No wealth to take with them. They have not even clothing to take with them. They have to leave all their possessions behind. The houses that they own. That's the call of faith. That when you're called to it, like they mentioned, there'll be a Hijra at the end of time. When people are summoned to the army of what? The Mahdi and the blessed lands of like the Yemen and the Sham. That how many of a believer is going to be able to leave this dunya? I mean, drop it. Leave your wealth, leave your house, etc. Leave the things that you think that are yours, to proclaim that yours. There. As many of the ulama say and the students say, we're just waiting for the call. Get that call, that khalas, that the Mahdi has arrived or whatever has arrived, then we will leave everything that we have to go to those lands to find those individuals. So we should not read, and that's why they mention about Dar al-Kufr, about an abode of disbelief, like the lands that we live in. It's a land of disbelief, or you can call it Dar al-Harb, Dar al-Kufr, or whatever you want to call it. It's predominantly a land of disbelief. And the ulama say that there's only two reasons that a person should remain in these lands. Only two reasons. One, they say, is da'wah ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you're here to bring people to the gateway of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one reason. The other reason, trade, tajir, commerce. That's what you're here for. They're the only two reasons what the ulama give in terms of the permissibility of remaining in lands of disbelief. And if people say, well, it's not that bad, says who? Who says it's not that bad? He says, when you can find that there's children disbelieving in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, leaving religion, not praying, all these other things, people not fasting, not respecting their parents in the manner that they should. See, the hukuk of Islam, the rights of Islam, is being stripped from people on a daily basis. We just say to people right now, you look at our generation right now, I can ask you right now, Imtiaz, yeah? Like the Muslims that you grew up with, how many of them pray 5 times a day? Seriously, all of the sisters at the back as well. Seriously, just think right now, in your own family, okay, mashallah, if you come from steadfast family, that's one thing, mashallah. But your friends and your cousins, how many of them actually pray 5 times a day? I mean, some places, Mubarak, Oldham and Luton, mashallah, we have like citadels of mashallah Islam there. But many of us, subhanallah, I'm thinking now, I have in excess of 20, 30 cousins in Liverpool. And I don't know one of them that prays 5 times a day. So how is it better being here? And then suddenly we don't even realize. Then the scary thing for the faqir is, I think, now they have children. So if their children don't see them praying, it's very clear that the children are not going to pray neither. They're going to play, not pray. I mean, that's the thing, that's the age in which we live in. And that's why when people say, where should I be? I'd rather you go back home. Was it worth the sacrifice coming to these lands for a bit of dunya? Ma hajra ilay. He gets whatever he made migration for a bit of dunya. And so Hijra is always khalas to Allah and His Messenger. That's the one that's rewarded. And sometimes we see now, as we mentioned, the fruits of our fathers and forefathers, etc. Many of us live off their fruits of their labour. They came, they worked hard, and khalas, intaqala ila rahmatillah. They moved to the abode of the mercy of Allah, but we're living off their fruits, and we're not doing half the work that they did. Like the masajid in Liverpool, the masajid in Luton, the masajid in wherever people are from, in Warrington, they're not built by this generation. They're from a generation gone. They came here, they saw we need a place to pray, they built a masajid. We need madrasas, they started the madrasas. We need places to bury our deceased, they're the ones who petitioned the council for land and for mortuaries where Muslims can be buried. This generation, they gave birth to a generation of slackers, as they say. Just people who slack. We have more disposable wealth than they ever had. We can afford to travel to different places in the Muslim land. We can do Umrah over and over again. We can do Hajj over and over again. We can go on all these courses over and over again. We can go visit even friends here and there. They worked, they saved. They maybe performed the Hajj once in their life, Umrah once in their life. And some of them did not even see the death of their own parents because they came to these lands. The sacrifice that they made. Didn't see the death of their own parents. Death of brothers and sisters. Their only goal was to get back home, eventually get back home. But I guarantee if you were to ask them, okay, khalas, you've acquired what you acquired. What are your children the way you wanted them to be? Completely different generation. Why? Ma hajra ila ma hajra ilay. They get the reward for whatever they made migration for. Whatever you made migration for, that's the reward for. But now we're here, but now we have a responsibility being in these lands. And the greatest responsibility is that we fall into the da'ira of da'wah. We fall into the what? The circles of calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bil lisan, by our tongues. Bil ahwal, with our states. Or bil aqwal, or bil af'al, with our actions. That there has to be some type of what? Legitimacy for us to be here. Can't just be here, we're here to just work, get money. Khalas, that's the end of it. How are you going to be when your child can't even pray over you? Or you've got no one to pray over you? That's like the age that we live in. So here, migration, very important. As the Prophet mentioned, the real migration is migrating inwardly for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. That's a real migration, that you move from disbelief, disobedience now to ta'ah, to obedience of Allah and His Messenger. So He commanded His companions to go, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And here, this is called what? The first year of the Hijra. The first year of the Hijra now, the Hijra is legislated, but likewise jihad. Striving, fighting in the way of Allah has also been legislated. Why? Because for many a year, prohibited for the Sahaba to fight their aggressors. Prohibited. The Sahaba were angry, they're a warrior race. Ya Rasulullah, they're killing us and we can't defend ourselves. Isbir, be patient. The order hasn't come now to fight. This year, not only the Hijrah, but now the order has come to defend yourselves. Sahaba now, very happy. Very happy, why? Because they can defend their religion really from the forces of aggression from the outward. And here what we notice about the Sahaba, when we speak about the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, warrior race, but when it ceases to be a martyr, we say, he's a martyr in Islam. He died as a martyr. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, he died as a martyr. Naam. What does that mean? Have you BJJ'd up right now? MashaAllah, he's BJJ'd up right now. What's a martyr? Someone dies in the way of Allah. Okay, Tayyib, naam, dies in the way of Allah, MashaAllah. But what happened in the battle? He lost the battle. That's a martyr. They go to war, but on the outward they lose. Otherwise they wouldn't have been a martyr. They lose the outward, but they win with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what a martyr is. Someone who goes there, khalas, they fight in the battlefield, but they lose the battle. On the outward they lose the battle, but they win with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Shuhada. We say the Hamza, say the Shuhada. Khalas. The losers, khalas, because the spear comes from what? From behind, from Wahshi, and kills him. So at that point he loses the battle, but he's won with Allah, and always be known as Sayyid Shuhada to the Yawm al-Qiyamah. Tayyib. And so the Prophet ﷺ, likewise, this is when he's what? 54 years old. The age of the Prophet ﷺ is 54 years old at this age. And apparently they say he leaves on the migration. The 15th of Rabi al-Awwal is when the migration actually begins. What? The actual Hijra actually begins. And so here the Prophet, he sends people forth. And Abu Bakr, the Prophet says, you Hijra ma'i, you migrate with me. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq begins crying. The greatest honor of Abu Bakr, khalas, he's the one that migrates with the Prophet. He wants to stay. Fida'an wa ummi ya Rasulullah. He says, I sacrifice my mother and my father for you, ya Rasulullah. And saying that to Aisha, he has his daughter who's married. They say she marries the Prophet now, does not consummate the marriage until Medina. She begins preparing the things. Likewise, his sister Asma bint Abu Bakr, the two daughters of Abu Bakr, now begin preparing the provisions for the Prophet and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to make the Hijra. And likewise, prior to the Hijra, the Prophet, he sees in a dream state that he's migrating to that city. There's a hadith from Abu Musa, he says that the Prophet ﷺ said, I saw in a dream that I was migrating from Mecca to a land in which there was date palms, and I thought that it was Al-Yamama or Hijra, but it turned out to be Al-Medina, Yathrib. The Prophet sees a vision, true dream, that now he has to what? Go forth to Medina Munawwara. Now, so as they make what? Prior to this, the Prophet tells Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhu, you remain. Why? Because now Quraysh are getting wind of the fact that there's migration going. They're going to Medina Munawwara, and they want to try and prevent the Prophet from going. They want him to remain in Mecca, so they can execute him in Mecca prior to the Hijrah. And so this news is revealed to the Prophet from Jibreel. Jibreel alayhi salam, he comes to the Prophet and says, they're planning to plot against you. The Quraysh are planning to plot against you. They want to kill you while you're asleep. So he tells them the plans of the Quraysh. And so the Prophet, he orders Sayyidina Ali, young boy, you remain. And look what he gives him, like the brothers wearing there. He gives him his green Hadrami shawl. That's what the Prophet gives Sayyidina Ali. You sleep underneath this. That's what he says, Hadrami akhdar. Biridai Hadrami akhdar. My green Hadrami shawl. And some of the ulama that we know in Tarim, they say the shawl was from Tarim. And they say, why? They say in the time of Sheikh Abu Bakr bin Salim, radiallahu anhu, rahmatullahi, said the masajid, they would have people who would sew the shawls of the masajid, and that would be what? The prayer mats for the masajid. So some of the ulama of Tarim say, no, it's from Hadramaut, but it's from Tarim. Because in our lands were known for people who would sew shawls, sew these type of shawls. When you open these shawls out, the shawls, like they mentioned the Prophet, the shawl have many, many benefits. One, if you notice these shawls, extremely large, extremely wide. Use them for what? An izar, to cover nakedness. Likewise, open them out when you sleep. You can sleep on them, you can sleep what? With them over you. Likewise as well, to what? Shade you from the elements when you walk out, in the heat or in the cold, they shade you. But likewise also, it can be used for a coffin for someone as well if they die. They walk, they die. That's why they said that, the Sudanis, they have big imams on their heads. Big imams, like look at Sudani Mashayikh, they have big imams. Why? Because if they die somewhere, people can wash them, their coffin is their imam. So we know. Wrap them with it, and that's the imam. So the Prophet ﷺ, what? Gives him his shawl and says, you remain behind. As the Prophet ﷺ, he steps outside, he sees what? The bands of what? Quraysh. The clan of Quraysh, the people now, the assassins are out to try and assassinate the Prophet the night prior to his leaving. They receive wind that the Prophet now is going to be leaving. And that's when the Prophet takes a handful of dirt. Well, and he recites, they say, part of Surah Yasin, but likewise says, Shahatil wujuh, Shahatil wujuh, Shahatil wujuh. And he just throws the dust. And the dust just overcomes the assassins. They all drop down asleep. They all fall asleep. All of them, khalas, every single one of them. The Prophet tiptoes over them with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And they take a different route to Medina Munawwara. They don't go what? The normal route. They take the opposite route. What? To put off what? The tribe of Quraysh. Morning comes, Abu Jahl wakes. He starts waking up all the assassins. Khalas, the day is broke. The duha has come. Quickly, go in and kill him. When they enter in and they pull the shawl back, They have the knives over him. They find Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib lying there, khalas, willing to sacrifice himself for the Prophet. Even if they would have stabbed him underneath the shore, he wouldn't have cared less. تحت أمر رسول الله. I'm under the order of the Prophet tells me to remain. They kill me, I die shaheed. Imagine that, khalas, die shaheed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when they remove him, they find Ali bin Abi Talib, they realize, where is your companion gone? He's left. Now the stampede begins. I'll give people 100 red camels, 100 camels, if they bring what? Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam to me. Now, so on the way, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said he passed by a woman there, her name is Ma'bad. Her husband later becomes Muslim, and she becomes Muslim first. Ma'bad, and she's there, and she has a load of sheep with her. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, "We need something to drink." And then he says, "So do you have any of your sheep here that they give milk?" He says, "None of them right now, they're all too young." And the Prophet says, "Do you have an elderly sheep? An old one? Retired? Doesn't do nothing no more?" And she says, "Yes." And the Prophet says, "Bring it over to me." She brings it over to the Prophet, and the Prophet says, "Bismillah," and hits it in the udder. Just touch it in the udder like that. It says, the udder just swells, full of milk. Khalas. The Rasul says, "Get a bucket. Get a bucket." He drinks. Abu Bakr drinks. The family drinks. Khalas. She's filling a bucket. Khalas. And then the Rasul says, "Bismillah." Hits the udder back. Shrinks back into place again. She goes and tells her husband, "This man that Quraysh are looking for, by Allah, he's a righteous man." Takes her husband. They both embrace what? Islam at the hand of the Prophet. That's one of the miracles, mu'jizat of the Prophet. And that also happened with what? Abdullah ibn, not Abdullah, one of the companions of the Prophet, what's his name? It's another similar story that the Prophet mentions about one of the companions, where the same story happens with Abu Bakr is with the Prophet and he says, "Give me a goat," and the boy says, "No, I can't give you the goat. I can't give you the goat." He says, "Why?" He says, "Because they're not mine." He says, "Okay, have you got an elderly goat that doesn't give?" And he says, "Yes, there's one there." So he says, "Bring that one over." And the Prophet puts his hand on it. Udders filled with milk again. They drink from it. Likewise, Abu Bakr drinks. And then the Prophet says, "Bismillah," puts his hand back on, the udder goes down. And then so he turns around and says, "By Allah, I will not let you go until you tell me how you did that. That's impossible to do." And then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq turns around, he says, "That is the messenger of God." He says, "What's the messenger of God?" And the Prophet explains to him about Islam, and he becomes Muslim. He's one his name's Abdul Rahman, what? What's the name now? What's the name? Ala kulli hal, but he becomes Muslim because of that mu'jiza. He sees that miracle at the hand of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So khalas, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and they say, and the Prophet sallallahu, they begin now on the Hijra, and then upon finally taking the migration, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companion Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, they left for the cave of what? Thawr. Mentioned the footnote. It's located on Mount Thawr, Jabal al-Thawr, from which it takes its name, and it's 4 kilometers south of Mecca. The Prophet and Abu Bakr, they sought refuge from the Quraysh for 3 days and nights in the cave of their migration from Mecca to Medina. And they say that the daughter of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Asma bint Abu Bakr, she's the one that brings a provision to the Prophet and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Every evening she brings. And they say when they entered into the cave, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr goes in first to check to make sure that the cave is fine for the Prophet. Then the Prophet enters and he lies down. As he lies down, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he realizes that there's one snake hole which is open. So he puts his foot over it, puts his heel over that place to make sure that no snakes come in to the Prophet while he's sleeping. As he's there, a snake bites him. It bites his foot. Because it can't come up. Bites his foot, and the poison is now in Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who starts changing colour. And they say from his sweat drops, the Prophet wakes up, and he says, "Mada bika ya Abu Bakr? What's with you, Abu Bakr?" And he says, "Ya Rasulullah," he says, there was a snake hole that I wanted to keep covered because I didn't want anything to come in and disturb you. And the Prophet says, let me see it. And he sees it, and then the Prophet spits on his finger and rubs it on the heel of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And what? It becomes what? Healed straight away. It's healed straight away from what? The saliva of the Prophet. And then the Prophet said, some of the ulama, they mention about that particular incident. They say, why was it that the snake bit Abu Bakr? So the reason why the snake bit Abu Bakr, because the snake wanted to see the Messenger of Allah. Not to harm the Prophet, but wanted to see the Prophet. And for that reason, it bit what? The foot about the heel of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. What? Even the animals, they yearn to be with the Prophet. Not to harm him, but to be with him. And so here Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, as he's in this cave, and he's fearful, he says, Ya Rasulullah, can they see us from here? If they came, would they be able to see us from here? And the Prophet says, Uskut ya Abu Bakr. Quiet ya Abu Bakr. He says, don't you know that we are the two and Allah is the third? We are the two companions in this cave, but Allah is the third. He is the one that's what? Going to give us what? Protection from Quraysh. And that's why it mentions that what? When the Quraysh do come, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he stands up. But then Allah, from His magnificence, and He protects His Prophet, that He allows the spider to weave the web so they can't see. And then also the hamamat, that the pigeons, they come and khalas, they sit in the front of the cave. So in Suraqa ibn Nawfal, Suraqa is the one that the Quraysh now pay. Suraqa, they say he knows the desert like the back of his hand. So despite him trying to cover up the tracks, etc., of the Prophet, he knows that they're around there somewhere. The Prophet is around there somewhere. Khalas. So he brings Quraysh. Quraysh are looking. Should we go into the cave? No, look, the web's not even broken. The pigeons are still remaining. If someone's in there, they would have broken the web. They would have what? Knocked the pigeon's nest out the way. So khalas, they say, no, let's leave it and go. Suraqa ibn Nawfal knows that something is not right. Suraqa ibn Nawfal, he knows that something is what? Is not right in that regard. Tayyib. And so here the Prophet and Abu Bakr, they continue what? The Quraysh set out in pursuit and communicate through their tribes a bounty of 100 camels for each one of them killed or taken prisoner. The search reached the cave of Thawr, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He averted their sight from them. And He recorded the miraculous nature. So it's mentioned, the footnote there of what we mentioned. And so the Prophet mentioned the Quran here, says, while in the cave, Abu Bakr suddenly saw the footprints of one of the footsteps of one of the Quraysh, the polytheists, and said, O Messenger of Allah, if one of them was to raise his foot, he would see us. He, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then responded by saying, what do you think of two people with whom Allah is the third? And then Allah reveals the ayah when the second of them is two, or of the two, as they were in the cave, said to his companion, do not worry, for verily Allah is with us. Allah describes Abu Bakr as the companion. There's only one companion by name which is mentioned in the Quran. Zayd ibn al-Haritha. Zayd ibn al-Haritha mentioned by name in the Quran. Yeah? The other one that Allah refers to is the companion is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And this is one of the reasons why they say why he's chosen to be the Caliph, Khalifatul Rasulillah. After the passing of the Prophet, the demise of the Prophet, he's chosen. Why? You're the one who was in the cave with him. You're the one that khalas made the Hijra with him. You spent that time with the Rasul. You're mentioned as a companion in the cave. That what Abu Umar ibn Khattab, he begins to remind the Sahaba about. On the way to Medina Munawwara, Suraqa ibn Malik caught up to them. Now this is one from the great one. Suraqa ibn Malik. So as he comes, Suraqa ibn Malik, he comes now, he sees them. As he approaches the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet what? Raises his hands to Allah. The horse of Suraqa ibn Malik, boom, falls to the ground. Strange. Khalas. Then the Prophet and Abu Bakr go a distance, the horse rises. Suraqa ibn Malik, khalas, the horse goes again. As he draws closer, boom, falls down. Because he wants a bounty, he wants 100 camels. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he turns around, he says to Suraqa ibn Malik, he says, how will it be when you wear what? The garments of the kings of Kisra. Suraq ibn Malik, he promised him what? Safe passage. He says, Kayf? He says, Khalas, and he invites him to Islam. They say he becomes to Islam later on. In the time of Umar ibn Khattab, when the futuhat of Islam occurred, when the openings of Islam occurred in different lands, they occurred in Syria, likewise, from the Kisra as well, they took over these lands of Persia, of Rome, parts of Rome, likewise, of what? Of Syria, that the clothing, the garments of what? Of the Kisra comes to Medina Munawwara. Suraq ibn Malik's there, and he remembers the statements of the Prophet that you wear the clothing of what? The king of Kisra. So it comes and Umar says, Ya Suraqa. He says, Naam. He said, didn't the Prophet say that you'd wear these clothings? He says, yes. He says, put them on. Suraq ibn Malik. Suraqa dons the garment, dons the crown, dons, the shawl, has everything, all the jewelry, everything, walking up and down, takes a few yards, 10 yards forward, walks back 10 yards, walking with him. Then Umar says, well, take the whole thing off, put it back. He says, but the Prophet ﷺ said, I'd wear it. And the Prophet and Umar says, you wore it, now take it off. It's going to go to Bayt al-Mal. It's going to be given what? In sadaqah to the believers. The Prophet sadaqah Rasulullah, he said you wore it. He didn't say you would keep it. Yeah, he said only that you wore it. This happens what? In time of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. Nah. So here the Prophet, that being so, the Prophet prayed for him and gave him glad tidings that he would come to wear what? The bracelet and also the clothing of what? Kisra, the king of the world. Suraka returned, sending back whoever he met. When he went back, he said to Quraysh, not this way, definitely not in this direction. It's impossible for them to go in this direction. He lied to them. And lying is permissible in warfare. So at that point it's permissible, so it is type of warfare. So he redirects what? The Quraysh. Now. And so here, the Prophet ﷺ, he arrives in Medina al-Munawwara. It's beautiful, there's a beautiful narration from Anas ibn Malik. Anas ibn Malik, when he's a young boy, he said the children of Medina al-Munawwara, they would rush to the outskirts of Medina every single day. And I was from them when we heard that the Prophet was entering in Medina. And we would wait in the daytime till the evening time. And when he didn't come, we'd return back with broken hearts. And that was yearning from Anas, love of the Rasul's placed in his heart prior to meeting the Prophet. Before he met the Prophet. It's very important with children, likewise, and likewise adults, we have it infused in our heart a yearning to see him, a yearning to be with him. And then Anas said the next day we'd go out against the boundaries of Medina to Munawwar. We'd wait there. Is the Rasul coming? Is the Rasul coming? So I said, see other companions come? No, he's not here. We returned back broken hearted. And he said, we did this for almost 2 weeks. Every day going to the outskirts of Medina. Every day waiting. Until finally, طَالَ بَدْرُ عَلَيْنَا. The Prophet arrives. And what? The Ansar received him with songs of joy and poetry of delight. Its quarters were illuminated with his light. And that's why he said, Anas said when the Prophet entered Medina to Munawwara, Anwara kulli shay, everything became what? Illuminated by the entrance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the anthems of its reception had been etched into history forever. This one's Tala al-Badru alayna. This is it. This is what's been recited. Poetry being recited in the face of the Prophet. If it was prohibited, he would have told them to stop. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If the drums of Banu Najjar, the women, they played the doves of Banu Najjar in the streets where the Prophet would walk, if it was prohibited, he would have said so. So I said, why? He comes with haqq, but he allows them to. If, even like the movement, the dancing, when he saw it in the masjid, the Prophet, he's with his wife, Sayyidat Aisha, and she sees the people from Habasha, that they're dancing in the masjid, the Prophet with their spears, they're dancing in the masjid, and she says they're dancing, the Prophet, he said, leave them, it's their Eid. Meaning, if it would have been prohibited, he would have said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not what we think of dancing of today, like provocative type of dancing. But no, this is dancing out of joy, of happiness. Khalas, he would have prohibited, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he never did. He'd have people come and sing to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Ka'b ibn Malik would come and sing to the Prophet. Abdullah ibn Rawaha will come and recite poetry to the Prophet. And one time he's in the time of Umar, he's writing poetry and praise to the Prophet. Abdullah ibn Rawaha, who dies in Mu'tah, he dies in the Battle of Mu'tah, he's killed at the Battle of Mu'tah, that he's writing poetry in the time of Umar. And Umar ibn Khattab turns around and he says, "You're writing what are you doing?" He says, "Writing poetry." He said, "For someone who's better than you." And Umar ibn Khattab said, "If that's the case," he says, "we should build a throne for you in the masjid where you can sit and just write poetry and praise the Prophet." And they bring a chair for Abdullah ibn Rawaha just to write poetry praising the Prophet. Done in the masjid, the Prophet never said nothing. Nowadays people write poetry and praise the Prophet, and some people have an issue with it. The Prophet himself, likewise, he recited only one line of poetry ever recited, and that's on an opinion that he recited one line of poetry. So here, when the Prophet ﷺ enters into Medina Munawwara, everyone is rejoicing at the Prophet. But it's where is the Prophet prior to the entry? There's one stop that the Prophet makes. There's two places where he prays, but there's one actual stop that he makes, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in a place, he's at a tribe called Bani Amr ibn Auf. Bani Amr ibn Auf is where the Prophet stops first and foremost. He stops there, and some say he spends over nearly 50 days in this place with this tribe. Some say 2 weeks. The Prophet doesn't speak, Abu Bakr speaks. Abu Bakr stands, and like a lion, he informs them who the Prophet is. They take him in. Then the Prophet, he builds the first masjid, Qubba. Masjid Qubba is built there. It's outside Medina Munawwara. It's outside as you go outside of Medina. He builds what? The first masjid in Islam. And it's mentioned that the Prophet would go there even after he entered into Medina. He would go there every Monday and Thursday. That he would go there. Some say every Saturday. But what we know is the Prophet would regularly visit that place. And that's the first masjid in Islam is Qubba. And Allah praises those people and praises what their purity likewise. Then, prior to entering into Medina Munawwara, the Prophet likewise prays in a different place. We prayed at, remember, on the outskirts of Medina, there's another place where the Prophet actually prayed at. He prayed in, and they take that as another masjid, what's going to be built in the future of Islam. Then finally, the Prophet enters in what? To Medina Munawwara in and of itself. Now, and when the Prophet enters into Medina Munawwara, the first thing is where is he going to stay? Where is he going to stay when he enters Medina? Whose house is going to stay? He doesn't have anywhere to go. Most of his companions, what made the Hijra, they say that the Hijra is a great thing. They say that Sayyidina Ali, Karamallahu Wajhu, he walked the entire Hijra. He walked into Medina Munawwara with bleeding feet. That's how he entered into Medina Munawwara, Sayyidina Ali Karamallahu Wajhu. Still found the order of the Prophet to make the Hijra. Anyone who could would make the Hijra. Anyone who couldn't, they were enslaved in Mecca. Their families locked them up, lock and key. Khalas, that they're enslaved in their houses in Mecca Mukarramah. Anyone who could leave, they would leave to get to the masjid of the Prophet, or get to Medina Munawwara. When the Prophet enters, they're all saying, stay with us, Ya Rasulullah. The Prophet says, Khalas. He says, whatever, he said, I'll stay, whatever, first we go to Qaswa, whatever the camel stops at the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. The Prophet was staying with Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. As we know, Qaswa later on, leave the camel, wherever it goes, that's where he stays. That's where he's going to stay. So stops outside the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. So as he stops outside the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, thrilled because the Prophet spends 50 days in his house. 50 days in the house of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. And so it's a beautiful narration that it mentions in his autobiography, in his biography of the Sahaba. It says, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, like when the Prophet entered his house, he says, Ya Rasulullah, we've prepared upstairs for you. And the Prophet said, I prefer to stay downstairs. He says, why? He says, in case people want to visit me, I have guests, whatever, they can come see me downstairs. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari says, Ya Rasulullah, we were prepared. He said, no, it's best if I stay downstairs so I can have guests. So they don't want to trouble the Prophet. So him and his wife are extremely embarrassed the fact that they have got to walk above the Prophet. And this, like, there's only 2 traditions I know that still hold this to this day, that they don't like their feet to be above the heads of their parents. Yeah, and one tradition is tareem. In tareem, parents would never be downstairs and their kids be upstairs, because the feet will be above the head. The other tradition is the Nigerian tradition. Likewise, they're the same. They would never allow their children would never be upstairs while their parents are downstairs, as if they're having their feet above their parents' head. Abu Ayyub Ansari and his wife, they feel like that. Okay, how can we be upstairs and the Prophet is downstairs? One is our feet is above his head. Secondly, if we make a noise, we disturb him. So the first night they don't sleep. Abu Ayyub Ansari and his wife, they don't sleep. They don't sleep whatsoever. They're like, okay, how can we sleep in this state? Maybe our feet are right now above the Prophet. And then when they eventually do sleep, on the second night, that someone knocks a bottle of, like a holder of water, they knock it over. And obviously mud houses, it leaks. So Abu Ayyub al-Ansari is like in a state of complete panic. I can't do this no longer. And then he goes to the Prophet and says, Ya Rasulullah, he says, how can we be between you and the heavens? How can we be between you and the heavens? If revelation comes, how can we be between you and revelation? That's it. How can we be above you? When khalas, Allah has granted you this and we're going to put our feet over you, Ya Rasulullah. That's the adab that they have with the Prophet. That's why they say the greatest thing that will give you openings is adab. And they beseech the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, please take the upstairs chambers. And the Prophet agrees to it. He takes the upstairs chambers after the second day and he resides upstairs. But that's why they say a person who receives the most is a person who has adab. Adab with Rasulullah, adab with his family, adab with his teachings, adab with what? His people, adab with his what? His ulama and awliya, who has adab with him, they receive the most. And that's why Imam Malik would say, he said, I spent what? He said, I spent 80% of my time, he said, learning knowledge, and the other 20%, he said, learning adab. He said, I wish I would have spent 100% of the time learning adab. Learning adab. Whoever has adab, people talk about tasawwuf and spirituality. They say, Man zada fil akhlaq, fazada wa fil tasawwuf. Whoever increases in good character through what? Through adab, etiquette, they increase in spirituality. That's what the two go hand in hand there and then. So Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, he's promised by the Prophet, he says, you will not die until what? Istanbul is conquered. Istanbul is conquered. Constantinople is conquered. You will see the opening of what? In Istanbul, of Constantinople at that time. And so Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, when now the lands of Islam are spreading, are being opened up, that he's in his 80s, he's like 88 years old. Well, what? He's the only living Sahaba that go with the army of the Muslims towards Turkey. And when they go to Turkey, he becomes very, very sick, very, very ill. And he's encouraging the army, don't forget what your Prophet promised you. Don't forget that he promised you that this land will be open and the victory will come through this land. And I will witness it. They say the day of the victory of Istanbul, Abu Ayyub al-Ansari dies there in Istanbul. It's the day of the victory. And he's buried there to this very day. Radiallahu anhu wa ardahu. But no doubt his grave and the graves of the Sahaba, they're a vortex to the Prophet. Every single one of them are with him. When you visit the Sahaba, it's as if you're visiting him, because he is with his companions. When you visit Ma'na and you visit the Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet, don't worry, he's with his family. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Anytime you visit what? These great places and these great what? People. And then shortly after the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he looks what? To build now what? The construction of Masjid al-Nabawi. And so it's mentioned here that there's someone from Bani Ghazan, Bani Ghanam, an individual from Bani Ghanam who has the land, the original land of where Masjid al-Nabawi was built. And so the Prophet asked for the land. He says, I won't give the land, but I'll sell it to you. And say that the Prophet, they said he sells it to the Prophet for 10 gold dirhams. 10 gold dirhams, the actual plot of land where the original masjid is first built, is sold there. And the person who pays that, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq pays that. That masjid then is what? Later on, it's, as he said, the first of it is that its ceiling is what? It's just date palm leaves. And the inside is just what? Turab, it's just sand. And later on, maybe what garments are put there, but it's just sand in the masjid in of itself. And so that original masjid, that I say, it eventually expanded in the time of Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab. He's the one that expands it, and then over the history of Islam, it's expanded further and further and further. But the original one, the purchase is from Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He pays for that original plot. And the Prophet mentioned, "Man bana masjid fi dunya, bana Allah lahu bayt fil jannah." Whoever builds a masjid for the sake of Allah in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will build them for them a palace in paradise. And so what? This is the migration. The migration has many stories to it. Unfortunately, one class is not enough to cover the migration. Actually, one class is not enough to cover any of the chapters. So Isra and Mi'raj, we can do entire courses on the Isra and Mi'raj and what the Prophet saw during the Isra and Mi'raj. Likewise, the Hijra. The Hijra is so vast that we could spend an entire week speaking about what? The incidents that occurred on the Hijra of the Prophet. But due to the constraints of time, and inshallah, we just take the blessings, inshallah, as an overview from the Hijra, and then inshallah from tomorrow, likewise, an overview from what? Building the community and how we go about building communities as well. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين. Any questions, comments, additions?
Should I just go back to the place of belief, place of disbelief? I think that obviously being from that second, third generation that you discussed, I'm just reflecting on the intentions that you said we should have in terms of dawah or trade. Like dawah itself, I feel like even it's so hard to do that because there's a lack of knowledge, but even if the knowledge is there, there's a lack of implementation of that. And I think that's because of our, personally speaking, I think there's just the Western programming of accumulating knowledge without its implementation. In terms of our lifestyles in that regard, how could you advise us if our intention should be dawah, and then also if the intention is trade, is that trade that we set up ourselves as opposed to work within the system?
That's usually what it means by trade, is that usually what you set up yourselves. What the ulama say about dawah, they say there's more doorways of dawah than there are ayahs of Quran. I mean, dawah is vast. It's extremely vast. And it's not simply about just sitting and teaching. It's not even simply about what, going to hold lectures in places or go to, although no doubt that plays a massive part. But dawah has many different forms. Dawah can be helping charity organizations. Dawah can be helping feed the homeless. Dawah can even be involved in dawah projects that you're not an individual who can, you don't have the capability or the time or even the ability to set up dawah initiatives, then go and aid those that are. So go and aid, and a perfect example is like Olive Mount. Maybe we just don't have the time, energy, resources, or even ability to set up a project like that. But we know by aiding that project that we're part of the dawah of that project. And that's why they always say, there's a saying in English where they say plenty of hands make light work. And so that's likewise the dawah, that the more people that are involved in it, the easier it is for these type of projects and initiatives, and obviously the overall impact of those projects that individual receives in this life and the hereafter. Like for example, Felicity House. Some people that were here at the very beginning of Felicity House, they did fundraisers, whatever. Some people who gave a little bit towards it, some people who donated some money towards it, or give some charity in behalf of whatever. And we no longer see those people. But inshallah, it's our hope, inshallah, and from their intentions, that every good that comes from this place, they're receiving the reward of it right now. That was part of their dawah initiatives for being here. So I think also another thing is that even though we're programmed by Western institutions and Western way of thought, we can also deprogram as well. And that's why it's really important to have a strong attachment to mashayikh. to teachers, and likewise also to people of what? Dawah themselves. And that's what I say, like you say, Dawah you can take from people and from books. You can take that. You can take the methodology of Dawah. It's very easy. There's many books have been written on that, and how you should speak at the right time, the right place, right circumstance, etc. What's appropriate, etc., etc. There's many books written on it. But they say the ruh ad-dawah, the soul of the dawah, is taken from mashayikh, is taken from teachers. They're the ones that infuse your soul with dawah. Like your purpose then suddenly becomes, your focus shifts away from being this world to all being focused for the hereafter. That's the more time you spend in circles, the more time you spend amongst what? Teachers, the more time you spend amongst what? Mashayikh and Ahlul Bayt, and those who've been endowed with that amana, and you see how they're fulfilling that amana, it infuses something in you to want to what? Partake in that, or support that. And that's why, some people say, when we came back, say some of our teachers say, we know that by supporting you, or aiding you, we're aiding the dawah of the Prophet ﷺ. And we are not honoured by that. We don't honour that one way. We are honoured by it. We are honoured by being in that. One of I'll give you an example. Like the Fakir had a friend called Tony, rahmatullah, who died 7 odd years ago here in Liverpool. And I was in Yemen at the time, and I was going to fly back to wash his body, and then one of the Sheikh Fatis phoned me from Luton, from Crawley, Woking, what is it, Crawley, Woking he's in. And he says to me, he said, I can come up and help you wash the body. That's a 4-hour drive, 4.5-hour drive up north. I was like, no. I said, it's no problem, you don't have to. He said, no. He said, don't you understand? He said, we are honoured by this khidmah. We are honoured by it. We don't honour it one iota, but we are honoured by it. And he did that. He drove 4.5 hours up here, helped wash the body for 3 hours, and literally prayed the janazah and left straight away. Right away back down to get back for work. Like when we told our teachers this, they said, this is the reality of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. This is the reality of it. But you go and aid a brother or a sister, you don't even know them, don't even know their name, don't know nothing about them, just know they're connected to you through bond of La ilaha illallah. That is the dawah of the Prophet in motion. I mean, like for example, Sheikh Ibrahim, I'll give you an example, like here in Liverpool. Sheikh Ibrahim, I remember when the Fakir first came back and sitting, and he was telling me about, we have this academy called the Roder Academy for the children. And he said, we have to look after our children and blah, blah. And I remember I went back home and I was like, Sheikh Ibrahim, I went back home and I was just like, kind of upset. And I was like, Sheikh Ibrahim's being like, our children need this, our children that. He's very concerned about the children that come in, very concerned about what they're doing, at their progression, every single child that walks in. And I was like, that is the height of what? Selfishness. I said, why? It's like, these are our children. And I remember going home, said Subhanallah, I said, all Sheikh Ibrahim's children are grown up. They're all 18 or 15 and in their 20s, whatever. He still sees every child as his child. I mean, many of us, we do stuff because it benefits us. Like for example, right, like the sister's got maybe like a child now. You start thinking more about the child, don't you? You start thinking like, Subhanallah, what's going to be in place for the child when it's older? We have to get things in motion. Let's set up a crash facility. Let's start a little madrasa for children. So we do when it's for our own interest in one sense. Many of us do it. And with the homeschooling network, we'll do it. Why? Because for our own interest. But as soon as our children are out the equation, do we still keep that thing going? If we do, that's a sign of sidq, sincerity, that it was really for the dawah and preservation of future generations. If we don't, then we have to question our intentions behind it. So my advice would be that if we're not people of what, that we have the experience or knowledge, then we engage with those people that do have the experience and knowledge, and we support them wherever they are, whatever they do. Wherever we feel that we can aid this dawah, we should go into it. Like some people like to say in Tareem, for example, they're aiding the dawah is serving coffee in the Mawlid. And our teachers in Yemen say they are Ahl al-Jannah. They're the people of paradise. Why? Because they've been doing it 40, 50 years. Now they're teaching their children to do it after them. When I die, you make sure you know how to do it. And you get up and try and sit down. This is our ticket to paradise. But if they didn't do it properly and at the correct time, the whole thing looks like it's a sham. So they take it with quwwah. They take it with strength. So if you're going to go into or be involved in dawah related activities, then have a sense of seriousness about it. I mean, when it comes, it's really sad, but when it comes to Islam, we just compromise everything. When it comes to courses, we complain about this, that. We don't complain about universities. We don't put a complaint into the universities about the course, about the teachers. But when it comes to Islamic stuff, we feel we've got to say. When it comes to buying a ticket to the cinema or going out for a meal, we have no complaints. When it comes to buying a ticket for an event, we complain about Islamic events. When it comes to spending in la'ab wa lahu, as the Quran says, they're playing amusement, buy video games, buy phones, and buy all these other technology. We don't think twice about it. Meals don't think twice about it. When it comes to giving to an Islamic cause, we can remember exactly how much we gave when we gave it. And that's what I'm saying. We need to change our perspective completely. Change our perspective in terms of our relationship with the dawah and the process. And the other thing is, no doubt, likewise, change our perspective in terms of what? فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? Where are we going? And sometimes our teachers, you think, that was a bit, they just spoke very frank about it. They're telling you reality. It's like, khalas, perhaps that we can't see ourselves. You know what I mean? When they tell us about dunya, we have to look ourselves in the mirror. Are we a people of dunya? When they speak about nifaq, hypocrisy, are we people of nifaq? We have to look at ourselves in the mirror and then think, where can we be honoured by this dawah in our life? What can we give, or what can we do that can help the overall picture? That's how we've got to look at it if we're living in these lands. Teachers, our teachers, we love them, but they're not going to be here forever. And likewise, we're not going to be here forever. So then what have we left behind for those generations that are coming? For those people that are coming. And the second thing, in terms of trade, yes, we should definitely, if we work in places, then we should eventually save up enough to go into our own businesses, that we trade for ourselves. We should not be held by anyone else. Ulama speak about it, Shafi ulama speak about it in detail. They speak about it in detail. Like some of them say they have a rule that you can't even work for non-Muslims. That's a ruling they give. Why? Because they have rights of your time, they have rights of your life, and you don't entrust your affair to people of disbelief. Afwan, they should have you should never compromise your time for that. Some of the ulama speak about that, Shafi ulama speak about that. So what I'd advise is that people are working, then eventually find out what they're good at, save up enough money and try and work at that thing that they're good at. Mashallah, we have enough people in our communities that know about business, how to set up business, how to run successful businesses as well. We have enough handed of those skills with our community. People should really look to go independent eventually for what they're doing, whether they're teachers or whether they're managers or whatever they're in. Learn a trade, master it, and then go independent in terms of that type of trade. And that's what, our teachers do advise that. You say every single person, even if you're employed by an organisation, that you should always be looking or building something parallel to that work, that eventually you can go independent from that work. You should be building something parallel to that work, and you can go independent in that. Inshallah. I hope that helps. Any other questions, comments?
The person who mentioned
Suraqa ibn Malik, it was meant to be a little mistake.
the one who was following.
Suraqa ibn Malik. Yeah, sorry, it wasn't Nawfal, it was Malik. Suraqa ibn Malik, his name was.
So, in terms of trade, and you say you need to master your trade. So mastering your trade, it might mean, you obviously, any subject that you master.
Yeah.
And, people then come to you for advice on that subject.
Yeah.
You may write on that subject, you may, whatever it is that the industry demands, you do that. Is that time then almost wasted because it's for trade.
No, but the niyyah, you make the niyyah, every action is according to the niyyah. I mean, that's what إنما الأعمال بالنيات. Every action is according with its intention. Like, so the ulama say, like a person who goes out to work, for example, and makes the niyyah to feed his family and give sadaqah and pays zakah, that is no longer work, that's ibadah. That's worship at that point. It's just what you leave, what you're about to embark upon. What is your intention behind it? Khalas, if it's lillah, li rasulihi, if it's about, I mean, whatever, in terms of da'wah purposes, then it's reward. It's classed as ibadah at that point. You're rewarded for every breath you take within it. And so, as I mentioned about, for example, people go to work. It's about making sacred the mundane. Mundane acts become sacred, like going to work. I mean, khalas, like earning a living, like buying something. It becomes sacred because your niyyah is not about dunyawi niyyah. It's about ukhrawi. It's about what? To do with the hereafter. You should get down there, John.
Just on the note of like business and everything, my personal experience, in this day and age, sometimes working for a non-Muslim is less problematic than thinking, like, I'm just going off my brother's experience when he was working for, he had an issue with him praying, whereas where he works now, for council, or, you know, and there's, your elders are non-Muslim in it, and they don't give him any stress or headache. And, like, I set up my own business about 2 years ago, and it weren't to do with financing and stuff, it was to do with personal circumstances and closer to home, but, like, whenever we have an issue supporting each other.
We
I
do.
find it very sad.
No, we do. And I think also, you know what I mean, it's you know, you have to use hikmah in these situations, you know, wisdom in these situations. Like, I mean, I think like when Allah says ta'awun bil birri wa taqwa, Allah says, you know what I mean, aid each other in what? In righteousness and in God consciousness. And so the ulama, when they speak about, for example, these type of ayahs of the Quran that aiding each other in good, if people are drawing you away from Allah, then be very careful, because they say you don't disobey the Creator by obeying the creation. So what they mean by that is, for example, even if it's your parents, your family members, if they tell you not to pray in the prayer times you disobey them at that point. Like, you don't disobey the Creator due to what? Creation. It's fasting Ramadan, your parents tell you not to fast, and you don't have any legal excuse not to fast. Then at that point, you don't even listen to your parents at that point. That what? This takes priority. And even when we spoke about what people we spoke this on weekends, someone was saying that my job doesn't give me that much time to pray, and, you know, can I short my prayers and all that? Like, find a new job. Like, your job will come and go, but that prayer won't. Are you with me? That prayer is not going to come and go. And perhaps that's the type of conversation that should be had with those individuals. But after one, we're believers, and prayer is central to our faith, do you know what I mean? Without it, we have nothing left, in a sense. The Prophet mentioned, al-farq bayna al-muslim wal-kafir, al-salah, kama qala Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that the difference between a believer and a disbeliever is a prayer. But it's about when you go to work with people, especially, that's why they say that, you know what I mean, when you go to work with people, the first thing is also, whether Muslim or not, it's the character of those individuals. And that's why many people say England is ripe for Islam. It's right because non-Muslims have the right type of character and understanding. They're just missing the Shahada. Khalas, that's it. You know what I mean? But now, also we have in our, you know what I mean, in our ranks, unfortunately, is people who don't even understand what religion is. A person who understands faith, understands prayer, khalas. But people, like I said, that is the fruits, whether we like them or not, of living in these lands. That you raise perhaps a generation or children have no concern for prayer, have no concern for fasting, have no concern for even other Muslims. I mean, look at our own circles. There's not hundreds of thousands of people in them. So the vast majority of people are not on that type of way. Not even concerned of thinking about prayer, about Islam, about da'wah. Khalas, not, we don't have a lot of people, do you know what I mean, in that sense. Well, khalas, we just work with what we got. And I mean, sometimes like that, maybe it's worth trying to speak to those individuals. After you don't work with them, you know, always, you know what I mean, have good ties and go back and give them salam. So, you know, it didn't work out or whatever. But, I don't know if it's like that. But then also trying to cause them something good. If not, then just leave it be. The end of it is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of it.
Question.
Go on.
Just with regards to trade and stuff, you said that, an individual should kind of look at their skills and stuff. So, I studied accountancy, I did practice, etc., and I didn't like it because of what it can bring, type of clients and what it sort of encourages. So, yeah, so I stayed away from it. Sometimes I question whether I did the right thing or not, but I know that me personally, I wouldn't agree with it. So, now I'm in a position that the skills that I've got, because I've harnessed over a number of years, I can't really use it the way that people normally use it, i.e. set up account practice, help people with accounts and stuff. So, what could you advise in that regard then?
I think, the best thing, one of the best things to do is that if you don't find your heart is in something, then that's not usually the thing for you. As mentioned in the hadith, that people find ease in that which is written for them. Meaning that when you find, like some people, I'll give you an example, like some people train to be a doctor, I know a few of them, they train to be a doctors and they hate medicine. And the only reason they've done it is because their parents want them to do it. So they've got that skill, but they don't have a love for their profession. They don't have love for it. At that point, that is a waste of time. Because if they would have went into what they love, they would have excelled in it and probably been the best in it. But they were forced to go into what? Into medicine. So there's a brother I know, I was like, I would hate to be one of your patients to come and see you, and you hate what you do. So now he's completely, now he's in his 30s, he's completely changed his track in life. He said, I said, what did you want when you grew up? He said, I wanted to be a scholar. Now he's abroad studying. That's what he wants, that's where his love lied. And mashallah, he's excelled in that, because that's where his love lied. Other people that we know, they hated one brother turned around to me and said, they hate being a doctor, and another hates being a dentist. Why do you? Because my parents sometimes go, okay, you've got that skill. Do you still want to continue in that? No. Then you have to have some soul searching. Like, what is it that I'm good at? You've got to find in yourself, what is it I'm good at? And then khalas, go in that. Allah bless it, like some imtiaz. He does what he loves, which is to do with sports. That's where his passion lies, and he's very passionate about it. But mashallah, that is now excelled, and that's what we've got to look at. Some of us, some people, as we know, likewise, I was speaking to Sheikh Ibrahim, said some people, they're scholars, but they don't even want to be scholars. But it's just a thing that they have to go through because maybe in their families they have a lineage of scholars, but it's just by default they've come into. But if they had a choice, they'd rather be something else. So it's really, we have an opportunity now to find out where are our likes and where are our loves, what are the things that we love, and then start exploring those type of things. A perfect example of that's like Mustafa Davis, Allah bless him, he was a student of knowledge for a number of years, and then he always had a love for photography, and then there's only one time when Habib Ali al-Jifri phoned him up, and he's at the door of Dar Mustafa in Tareem with his books. Habib Ali says, what are you doing? He said, I'm going into a class now, I'm going to my classes now. He said, I want you to come to Abu Dhabi and be the photographer there. He says, Habib, he said, well, and leave my studies now. And the Habib, look what he turned around and says, he says, the effects that you're going to have in the dawah is going to be far greater in photography than it is sitting reading books. For him, it's going to be far greater for being in photography than it is for reading books. Get what you need from your Faradain, then go and walk in the world with where your passion lies. And then make that, I had this conversation with Sheikh Ibrahim as well about children, and what should we do with our children. He said, the key thing is, when people say, now football is like Mohamed Salah, and everyone's like, yeah, mashallah, Mohamed Salah, so he's footballer. Or, we hear, Muslim, whatever. He said, why can't it be your son? Why can't it be, your daughter? Why can't it be? He said, we all say, mashallah. But what if it were one of our own? Meaning that whatever their passion is that they're inclined towards, or a person inclined towards, that's what they should go and endeavour in. Because they'll naturally find it easy. You know what I mean? So, that's it. I think myself is just looking at some soul searching, like what is it? Where do your interests, where do your loves lie? And then making that a source of what? And as they say, once you have a passion in something, money will come easy anyway. Most people see that you read we know people like that in different fields. Like they just have a passion for it, the money follows later on anyway. Do you know what I mean? That's usually how it works. But a good one to always speak to is probably sit with Sheikh Ibrahim and speak to him as well. Ask him advice on what you should do, or where he thinks that, you know, you tell him what your likes or what you think you should do, and then let him give you some advice on that as well, in which particular field that you should go into.
He knows himself.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, inshallah. صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين في كل حمد لله رضا نفسي وزيد عن شمال الفاتحة بالقبول وإلى حضرة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الفاتحة.